About an hour ago, I was pacing near the bus stop and a beautiful girl passed by in the opposite direction. We locked eyes for a split second and she said hi. It didn't seem like she meant it, but more as if she had one of those moments where you awkwardly interact with strangers and just blurt out something without thinking. Kinda like when you say you two back at a waiter when they say enjoy your meal. I may have smiled back or something, but I pretty much ignored it. It's not as if she stopped to talk or anything. She said it while we walked past each other. She then sat at the bus stop bench and a minute later I sat by her side. She was reading a book and I grabbed my phone and scrolled for a second. She then closed her book and looked at me. I looked back and we had a bit of a strange moment again. And that's where she had me. I just love someone out of the ordinary who owns it. The girl had said hi to a complete stranger just walking by. After being practically ignored, she closed her book and stared at me, forcing me to acknowledge her. After I asked if she needed anything, she reverse carded me. And after I jokingly called her out on her weird behavior, she was completely unfazed and owned it. So I just chuckled some more, asked where she was from and put down my phone. She was German, but she lives here in Portugal in the same city I'm from, which is funny since we were a bit far from home. We told each other about ourselves, our jobs, places we'd visited, languages we spoke, etc. for a good 10 minutes or so. Then her bus arrived and she thought I was taking it too since we live in the same city, so I guess she wanted to keep the conversation going during the trip. I said I wasn't and we said our goodbyes and shook hands. I did want to ask for her number, but I thought I'd lost the opportunity, as she needed to get on the bus and I didn't want to delay her and make her lose it just for that. It turns out a lot of people nearby were waiting for the same bus and they formed a line. So in the end, I watched her walk to the back of the line and wait another few minutes to get in, meaning we would have had plenty of time to exchange numbers. But at that point, I felt it was silly to walk back to her and ask in front of a bunch of people, no less, after not having done so when the moment was right. So we waved each other goodbye when she got in, and that's the unclimactic end of the story. It started like any other slow Wednesday at the campus cafe, a place I visited not because of the overpriced coffee or the stiff wooden chairs, but because of the almost silence. The background jazz, the occasional clink of ceramic, and the soft hum of students murmuring over laptops, it had all become the white noise to my daily routine. I wasn't writing anything important that day. In fact, I wasn't really writing at all. I had an empty Google Doc open titled Modern Ethics Final Essay, but it had remained untouched for days. I was just there to pass the time, pretend to be productive, and avoid the outside world like usual. I remember the smell of cinnamon that lingered in the air, and how the barista's fake British accent echoed every time someone ordered a chai latte. It was almost laughably predictable, but then something broke that pattern. Something, or rather, someone unusual walked in. The girl who didn't belong. She wasn't dressed like the others. No trend-chasing outfits or perfectly curated style. She wore a hoodie that looked 2 sizes too big, mustard yellow with the sleeves half chewed and stretched at the wrists. Her jeans were frayed at the knees, but in a way that said life happened to them. Not a fashion designer. She hesitated at the door like she'd walked into the wrong movie scene. Then she tucked her hair behind one ear, sighed like she was silently arguing with herself, and walked inside. I had seen her before a few times, always sitting alone, sometimes sketching in a battered notebook, sometimes reading fantasy novels thicker than my laptop. She didn't have a loud laugh or loud friends. She existed quietly, but beautifully, and then it happened. She walked straight toward me. Hi. That's all she said at first. Just 2 syllables, softly spoken, wrapped in nerves. I blinked up at her. My brain stalled like a computer hit with too many tabs. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I know this is weird, she continued, forcing a small awkward smile, but I've seen you here before and I've kind of been debating whether I should say something. I just stared. I guess what I'm trying to say is you seem like someone I might like to talk to. If that makes sense. She laughed quietly, the kind of laugh people use when they're preparing for rejection. You always look like you're thinking about the universe or something deep. I like that. Still, nothing came out of my mouth. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I didn't say that's the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. I just froze. I'm sorry, she said after a few more seconds of silence. I probably sound insane. Just forget it. She looked down at her shoes. Have a good day. She turned and walked away. I don't know how long I sat there, watching her retreat to a far corner of the cafe. She didn't order anything. Just pulled out that same old notebook and started sketching something furiously. I finally exhaled. Then came the slow burn of realization. What the hell did I just do? She had approached me. A girl like her. Awkward, yes. Nervous, yes. But genuine. Beautiful in that quiet, bookish way I always told myself I preferred over the loud, showy types I never understood, and I had blown it. My fear had paralyzed me. My low self-esteem told me it wasn't real. That maybe she was just being polite. That maybe I misunderstood, but it was real. Her voice. Her words. Her hesitation. Her courage, and I had sat there like a statue. My heart pounded as I stared at the side of her face. She was chewing on the cap of her pen now, focused on her sketch. I tried to read her expression, but all I saw was a wall. Whatever openness she had offered me, she had packed it back up and sealed it tight. Should I go over? I rehearsed lines in my head. Hey, I'm sorry. I was just shocked, but I'd like to talk to you. You caught me off guard. That was brave. Can we start over? But I didn't move. My legs felt like cement. The longer I waited, the weirder it felt, and then before I could summon the courage, she closed her notebook, stood up, and walked out. She didn't return to the cafe the next day. Or the day after. I started noticing everything but her. The girl with purple hair who always brought her dog. The guy in the corner who laughed too loud. The student who practiced French out loud while sipping macchiatos, but not her. I asked the barista one day, casually, hey, do you remember that girl who used to come in here sometimes? Big yellow hoodie. She shrugged. We get a lot of hoodies. It was as if she had never existed. Weeks passed. Then months. I kept thinking about her. Not in a grand romantic way. Not in some fairy tale sense. But in the quiet, painful hum of a missed connection. I kept replaying that moment in my mind, wondering what might have happened if I had just said something. What if I'd smiled, asked her to sit down, offered to buy her a coffee? What if I'd acknowledged how brave she was for doing what so few people ever do? Being real, the truth is, I didn't just miss a chance at romance. I missed a moment of human connection, and that stung the most. It was nearing the end of the semester when I found it. I was clearing out my campus mailbox, expecting nothing but spam flyers and irrelevant newsletters. But among the clutter, there was a folded piece of paper with no name, just my student ID written on the outside. I wasn't good at talking. You probably figured that out. But you seemed kind, even if you didn't say much. I don't regret saying hi. I only wish I could have made you smile. Hoodie girl. My throat tightened. That one small note meant more to me than anything that semester. Because it meant she had seen me, really seen me, even when I couldn't see myself. A different kind of ending. I never found her again. Maybe she transferred. Maybe she graduated. Maybe she just decided the cafe wasn't her place anymore. But in a way, she never really left. She became the reminder I needed. That people still try. That behind every awkward glance or nervous hi, there might be someone fighting a silent battle, trying to connect in a world built to distract and distance. Years later, same city. It had been nearly 3 years since that day in the cafe, the day she approached me, the day I said nothing, and the day I walked away with a regret so subtle and slow burning, it never truly left. I'd moved on with life. Graduated. Got a boring but safe marketing job at a mid-sized firm downtown. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment with too little sunlight and too much silence. I went to work, came home, ordered food, and repeated the cycle like a man, carefully trying not to disturb the stillness of his own loneliness. And sometimes, I still thought of her. Not in a dramatic, heart-wrenching way, more like a quiet ache. The kind that hums in the background when you're up at 2 a.m. scrolling through old photos or watching strangers talk like they've known each other forever. That girl. That yellow hoodie. That note. The gallery. It was a Saturday. My coworker, Jess, had dragged me to some tiny downtown art exhibit in a brick building with a crooked neon sign that just said space. The kind of place with free wine in paper cups, weird indie jazz, and people who used words like movement and theme a little too seriously. I was bored. Restless. Ready to leave after 15 minutes. But then I turned a corner and something stopped me. A sketch, simple. Black ink on beige paper. Framed roughly. Not signed with a name, just a small doodle of a hoodie in the bottom right corner. The drawing was of a cafe. Hours. The same window seats. The same chalkboard menu. The same sleepy barista slouching near the espresso machine, and there in the foreground a boy with a laptop and a girl standing in front of him, her hands clenched into nervous fists, her hair covering half her face. It was us. The name on the wall. I stared at that sketch for longer than I probably should have. She remembered it. She kept it. A wave of something hit me, regret or nostalgia, maybe all of it at once. I leaned in, reading the small tag under the frame. That was her. Or at least, the name she went by now. I opened my phone and emailed her on the spot. No drafts. No hesitation. I kept it short. You probably don't remember me, but I saw your piece today at Space. I'm the guy from the sketch. From the cafe. From the day I didn't say anything. You drew it perfectly. I've thought about that moment more times than I can count. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And thank you. If you ever want to grab a coffee again, this time with less awkward silence, I'd like that. Drew her reply. She replied 3 days later, I remember you. I wasn't sure if you'd recognize it. I almost didn't submit that piece. It was one of the hardest drawings I ever made. Not because of the art, but because I had to let that moment go. I'm glad you wrote. Really, I am. And yes, I'd like that coffee. Tell me when. The coffee shop. We agreed to meet at a new place, neutral ground. A bright, plant-filled cafe with too many kinds of milk and a menu that listed vibes instead of prices. I got there early. She came in exactly 2 minutes late, wearing a denim jacket covered in little enamel pins and patches that looked hand-stitched. And just like before, she hesitated at the door. Then she saw me. And smiled. This time I stood up. The conversation that finally happened. You're real, she said, laughing as she sat down. For a while I thought I made you up. You're real too, I said, and braver than I ever was. She waved it off. I don't know. That day I thought I was going to puke after walking away. We both laughed. Then we talked. Really talked. About college. About where she went afterward. About her freelance work. About the pieces she never showed anyone. About how that yellow hoodie had finally been retired. I told her about my job. My failure to write the paper I was pretending to work on. The note she left me. How much it had meant. Her eyes softened. I almost didn't leave that note. I figured it didn't matter. It mattered. I said a lot. The truth about that day. Over the next hour, we finally unpacked the moment we both remembered so vividly. I wasn't expecting anything, she said. I just thought maybe he'll say hi. Maybe I won't feel like a ghost for once. You weren't a ghost, I said. I was just too scared to believe someone like you would talk to someone like me. She tilted her head. Someone like me, beautiful. Honest. Different. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. Wow. Thank you. I don't get that a lot. I should have said it back then. It's okay, she said. You're saying it now. After the coffee, we didn't try to force anything. There was no grand romantic kiss, no dramatic gestures, but we exchanged numbers. We walked to the train together, and as she was about to leave, she turned and said, next time you'll say hi first. Deal, I said. There was a next time. Then a third. Then a fifth. We met for tea. Then for an indie film I pretended to understand. Then a night walk through the city where she told me about the comic she wanted to write someday, about two people who missed their moment but got another shot. And one day she showed me her notebook, the one I used to see in the cafe. It was filled with drawings. And yes, I was in more than one. In one sketch, I was smiling. In another, I was holding out a coffee cup. In another still, we were sitting together, finally. Not a fairy tale. We didn't become a fairy tale. Life didn't magically fix itself. But we stayed in each other's lives. Maybe we'll date. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just stay connected in that rare, beautiful way that only comes from shared silence and second chances. But this time I didn't waste it. And that makes all the difference.